Okay, everybody, hello. No, I'm running a couple minutes behind. I'm sorry. I fell asleep. I was very, very, very worn down, and I just like collapsed for about 10 minutes, and then I was like, "Oh shit, I need to go." So, hi. I did it. I made it to the thing. I should probably post this on Bluesky or something. How do I do that? Second. Should just get this out there. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna post this on the Sky. I'm streaming right now. All right. We did it. I made it. Common dad mode. I fell asleep because it is, I don't know if anyone knows or if this is the thing that, apparently it's only a small area, but my area got absolutely dumped on with like almost 2 meters of snow, and I had to pick up the kiddo and drag him home on a sled. And it was very cold, and it was very physically taxing. And then I got home and ate a bunch of carbs because we had dumplings for dinner, and then I was just like absolutely wrecked. But now I'm good, kind of. So we did it. I made it to the computer, and I'll be here for the next couple of hours. So hello everybody. I'm Tristan. I'm the host of Step Back, a YouTube channel that occasionally makes content, and this is the first stream since I actually made a video. The first video I had put out in like 6 months. So that's cool. That made me happy. And then also the video ended up being a huge success. So I'll take it. I'll take it. It's people seem to really miss the SBH videos. And so my latest video is just past 50,000 views after the first 9 days or week or whatever, and now it's it's doing numbers. It's doing way better than my last 9 video releases, that's for sure. So I'll take it. My next video that comes out TBD. What's going on? This was going on in the chat. Said Nazball to say that abstract art and minimalist art are a capitalist scam. I mean, it's a shallow take, that's for sure. I don't think it's like a take that you have to be like, you're a bad if you think that, but it's just kind of like sad. Okay. Ashley O'Connor stopping to say that you love It's Probably Not Aliens. Thank you. I appreciate that. I like that. It's a fun thing that I do, or that right now I'm hoping that there's not some like really awkward like there's some, I hope there's like, okay, so here's the thing, is that the season of It's Probably Not Aliens that is airing, we recorded back in like June. And I don't know if there's anything that is awkward election wise that is that's in the thing. So we'll see. We'll see. Okay, so let's see. Let's see. Where are we? I'm looking for a thing. I was supposed to. That's okay. All right. I guess I should try to run through. Oh, yeah. I did a poll of the higher tier patrons to see what the next topic is going to be, and it looks like I'm going to be doing a video on Hindutva. So I'm pretty pumped for that one. That's one that I definitely wanted to do for a while, and it is a topic that the what's it called the was it like the American Council of Indian Muslims or something like that reached out to me to make a video about it like months ago, and now I'm gonna finally talk to them and start working on it. So that's fun. That's a fun thing to do, and enjoying. I also need to start working on the next. I need to start working on that video, and I need to start working on the next. It's probably not Alien season. It's going to be a shorter one, and it's going to be on angels. So that's fun. But, yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else for me to really chew on to talk about. I started this. I booked the stream ages ago. So let's just see what people are... in my private equity video, too. The video that I wrote, I wrote it so far back that I was worried about, a episode of Last Week Tonight that came out in, March. I was worried that people would think that it was too similar to that when I wrote the script. And then I didn't end up having the ability or time to film it until, September. And then I had to end up hiring an editor to edit it. And that's why it looks a lot better. So, yeah, overall, video looks good. I'm happy with it. Next one will be some pretty messed up stuff, and it'll be interesting to see where that goes. Okay. I need to actually try to make I'm trying to keep on the content making train, so let's see. Where did I leave everybody off? Okay. Good timing. Holy cow, good timing. How are my step back? I'm okay. Life certainly keeps happening. I am what's it called? Starting this week, stuff at work chilled out quite a bit, and then starting next week, I'm basically working solo for a month. And I get 2 weeks off for Christmas, which is nice. So I should probably use that to do content of some kind. And yeah, I'm fairly worn out, but probably in a good way. I have a very busy life, I guess. That's the thing. Heard a good healthcare jokes lately. Winky face. Oh, geez. Yeah. I'm not surprised that that's going to come up here. Do I have any thoughts on the South Korean martial law issue? When I heard about that stuff going down, I was kind of like, good Lord, what is happening? And then, I mean... The thing is, when it came to the South Korean, like somebody who actually knows about South Korean politics would have a better take than I could have. Um, Only things I know is like South Korea has been like a military dictatorship pretty recently. Its democracy is fairly young, and so when you don't have the kind of like old, like the institutions don't really have like the sort of age to stand up to things like that, then yeah, these kinds of things happen. But then like also it seems like South Korea's institutions actually did come through because they like he did the martial law, and then they undid it. So like I don't know who came out on top in that situation. It seemed like the president was making a gamble and he lost. Um, is Assad cooked? I don't exactly. I know that there's been like increased violence. Like I think that there was like in Aleppo there was some like fighting that broke out, but I haven't followed too closely on what's going on. I have. Maybe this will be a good thing to kind of bring up. Since the election, I have like been trying to. So here's the thing. This is like my little guide to surviving the next 4 years. Um, I am. I remember during the Trump administration that it was very easy to absolutely run roughshod over your mental health by keeping up with the news very closely. A lot of times there would be stories that, you know, in the fullness of time would seem like they were a lot bigger than they were because of Trump's sort of. Trump has a sort of specific way that he approaches political theater. And it's the same way that he approaches business. He's a very much like big, showy, extreme thing, and then sort of walking it back and doing something a little bit smaller. And if you the thing is that like the sort of like what I'll say is like the short term the short term, you know, freak out over Trump did or said a thing. If you follow that too closely, it's going to fuck with your cortisol. You're going to be stressed out. You're going to be depressed. It's going to be bad for you. So I've like kind of taken a new personal philosophy of like taking a little bit of like an arm's length approach to the news. And instead of following things like, you know, moment by moment as they happen, instead like thinking more about like going more to like the pieces that get written like a couple weeks later with people who actually like had the time to talk to experts and weren't just like racing to be the first person to report something. Or when I brought this up with Matt, the term was like, you know, wait until Ken Klippenstein writes about it, then you know, then find out about it. Because like if you're going to, you know, have a panic attack about every single person that Trump appoints to his cabinet, knowing that like, you know, as we've seen, like several of them have already had to back out, like I'll wait until we really see who actually gets these positions and then have more of a talk about it, because otherwise it's just not going to be good for your mental health. Like kind of riding the roller coaster too close to the ground like that is just going to be a recipe for bad mental health. And honestly, all it will do is like there's this like idea that I think is kind of toxic, and it happens amongst people who are smart and engaged, which is that there's this idea that if that being informed and keeping yourself up to date about everything that's going on day to day constantly is somehow like an act of civic engagement and is like a thing that is good. When like for most of the time, what you will be finding out about is stuff that, one, you have no control over, two, will in the wash, like in the fullness of time, will have more to say cumulatively and more of like more like things that make more sense, or will at least be either will be like scarier or less scary given time and analysis. And honestly, like, takes up a lot of time and mental energy, enough that it keeps you from, like, thinking carefully about how you respond and like avoiding bullshit narratives and like those kinds of things. And so all that is to say that this time around I'm staying cautiously at arm's length from day-to-day news and focusing more on widening my news intake to more of the world, because I think over-centering the United States is going to be bad. And also just letting Trump's sort of like shock and awe tactics get to you. That's my thing. I don't think it does the world justice if I stress myself out by finding out every single crazy thing that happens. But either way, that's not to say that it's not going to be bad. But the jury is kind of out as to like because people are like, people are thinking of are going into all sorts of histrionics about what's going to happen with a second Trump presidency. And I'm kind of in a like, it's going to be bad. We don't really know how bad, and we don't know bad in what capacity, because if there's one thing that I'm picking up from like the sort of trend that he's doing right now, is that he's taking on a lot of people who are more personal loyalists of him rather than people who actually know how to do anything. And I see more problems coming in the US in the next few years that are based around the fact that you're going to have a bunch of people with a lot of power and a lot of personal access to grind, but who don't actually know how to wield power and don't actually know how to do things. And that's going to be more the problem. Anyways, you heard there's an Ancient Aliens episode down the line about superheroes with Stan Lee, and you can't wait to hear Scott take the front seat for that one. That would be fun. As far as like what Trump's presidency is going to be like, I think that anybody who says they know how bad it's going to be are people you probably shouldn't take seriously. Defy, defend, depose, everyone. Oh boy. Gotta say it. Gotta love those memes. That's refreshing. Okay, let's say what else we've got going on here. I'm glad people are starting to take Hindutva seriously, like the threat. I mean, not the Indian fascism developers. Yeah, I mean, I think that if anything, the big one, like for the American audience, is that now that Tulsi Gabbard is like, there's a lot of angles I could go down with Hindutva, right? Like, Tulsi Gabbard is now going to be pretty high up or is at least going to be at somewhat adjacent to the Trump White House, and Tulsi Gabbard has troubling sort of like connections with this movement. And also, like, Narendra Modi, while he wouldn't say that he believes in Hindutva, he definitely has a lot of like, super nationalist far right Hindu positions. And so I definitely think that it's worth doing, and that it's another case of like how Muslims are being targeted like almost the world over. So there's that. And I got like some legitimate people from like the Indian Muslim community in the U.S. who are willing to work with me on it and help me get some access to expertise and stuff. Let's see. If you want some info on the No Passaron anti-fascist dispatches from a world in crisis, a really informative chapter on the subject. Cool. Maybe you can make a video discussing propaganda of the deed. Now might be a good time to talk about it. Yeah, for real. I always thought that propaganda of the deed was not a real thing, but damn if propaganda of the deed isn't like, making a comeback this week for sure. The anarchists were crazy to think that if you did a high-profile assassination of a shitty person, that a lot of people would realize how shitty like an entire class of people are. They were mad for thinking that, and then it's like, oh boy. Anyways, Trump has a lot of supporters here. Thoughts on why? At least one bad noble family in Westeros, least bad European monarch in history. J-Lord, since you're giving me Australian dollars, I'm assuming you mean in Australia. I mean, Trump has like amongst like racist white conservatives in pretty much all of the Anglosphere. Trump has supporters. There's Trump supporters here in Canada. They just there was a mass deportation now protest in Hamilton, Ontario, just a couple weeks ago. And like it's not a huge secret that Australia is like one of the most openly racist countries. So, but thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. It's been a democracy since at least the 1980s. You see, like that, like the 1980s is like, it's only like 40 years ago. That's not that old, if you think about it. South Korea has a shit ton of activists, both older people who remember being a part of the protests of the 80s and younger folks who protest on the regular. Yeah, that sounds just like a healthier democracy, honestly. Anti-woke nostalgia for the raunch culture of the 2000s helped Trump get elected. Fox wrote an article about how Republicans became the party of raunch. Well, it's not a super chat. I don't know. Vox is one of those like newspapers or news things that they can do some very good stuff, but when you need to talk about political economy, they shit the bed fairly often because it's almost exclusively written by people who make $200,000 a year. If I were to make any sort of claim about why Trump got elected, because I'm like, it's still a work in progress as far as like researchers and stuff go. And I'm hesitant to say anything because I think the last stream I said I was pretty confident that Harris was going to win. So obviously I have to like kind of eat my own words on that. And me coming out to then be like, well, this is why it was obvious Trump was going to win is like, it seems like an act of intellectual dishonesty on my side. But the last few weeks, been trying to understand people's positions and try to figure out what happened slightly. I think that there are, there's going to be a lot more intelligent takes down the line. It certainly isn't the Democrats' line right now, which is that the Democrats went too far to the left by having one of the most right-wing Democratic campaigns in modern American history. But like a lot of times I'm always wary of my own instinct because a lot of my own election take instincts would be like a lot of people's, which is that obviously the Democrats lost because thing that I care about. Because, I'm like, oh yeah, they ignored the fact that they ignored like class issues, which like might not be wrong, but I think doesn't paint a whole picture. I think there is an important thing, which is just like, there's let me see. There's a couple things I can think of off the top of my head that might be coming close to me piecing together like what's going on with that, with like why the election went the way it did and everything. And it has more to do with like the fact that Americans are, by and large, very politically disengaged, but very politically minded. Like everything, like the fact that Americans take like all sorts of weird social issues and turn them, like only Americans could make, being mad that they can't be horny at children in video games and make that a political issue. Like Americans politicize basically everything, but also they are not civically engaged and don't really have, mostly because Americans are very poorly educated. Their education is abysmal. It's so underfunded, and Americans in general, like I just saw this whole thing where it said that like 19% of the US have a sub third grade Fleisch-Kincaid reading level, which implies that, because if you have a sub third grade reading level, you are functionally illiterate. And that like the idea that there's a like a large segment of the American population that is like extremely uneducated, that might be the reason why Trump got elected, because he said a lot of things that make no sense and are outright like lies, and was able to like push narratives that were like patently untrue and somehow just like won on that. And so the first thing is that like the chronic underfunding of American history or American education, and just the fact that like the US is like very bad at politics, and like the sort of systematic de-emphasis on the humanities has all kind of contributed to the fact that like Americans don't really understand politics at all, and don't understand like why putting a blanket tariff on the world is a terrible economic policy that's going to hurt you more than anybody else, or like why all these other things happen. And if you aren't skeptical and you don't have the education to like understand those things, then you're going to fall prey to these kinds of things. This is why the humanities are like important to understand. They make you critical citizens. That's probably why people in power want them to take it to retreat it. So there's probably the fact that like just Americans don't understand don't have a political education really, and that they're not very good at critically reading things. I think it's pretty well known that like American media literacy is also very, very low. Now, there's that also can't be the complete picture, because that's not like people have been doing politics for years, and I don't know. It's just a weak understanding. Like I think that in many ways, like all elections, there's not going to be like a single thing. But like the Democrats going around saying that like the economy's fine, that Joe Biden did all sorts of great things, which is like not even wrong in some ways, but like not the economy thing, but like to be fair, like there's some things that like we didn't give Joe Biden that much, like Joe Biden has credit for. Like Joe Biden was probably the most pro-labor president in the 21st century, and also passed the freaking what's it called, the most, probably the most powerful climate bill in American history. So like those things are should be considered big deals, but they're not really. They're not given the credit that they were given, and they didn't even come up in the election. And then also just the war, the fact that like Americans are kind of struggling financially right now, and the fact that the U.S. just keeps signing nonstop like arms deals to fucking Israel. Also, I think pissed some people off. Not as many as most people I think in my mutuals would think, but I think it's still a factor. And I think that elections have multiple factors, because America has 334 fucking million people in it. And so there's a lot of different reasons why things happen. And then there's just also like, there's like the sort of narrative. Like I was just seeing a thing last night by this like author on TikTok that has some pretty wise sayings, that he was like, how like if you look at like a lot of them, like a very provocative narrative in America is this idea of like the rural, hardworking, faith person, like person of faith, standing up against like the evil, decadent urban elite that looks down upon you and thinks they're better than you. And like to a lot of Americans who voted for Trump, that was sort of the sort of resentment of what they thought are like, people like educated people in the cities who think they're better than you, telling you what words you're allowed to use and stuff like that. That was very compelling to them. It's not necessarily true. I think that the right does more like, telling people what they can and can't do and has way more sway over like, America in general, but narratives and reality don't have to necessarily be in sync. And then there's the last bit, which I think is just a thing that is pretty simple, but I think explains a lot of elections in a way that people who want more complicated answers don't really like to say, which is that to a lot of people, elections come down to two things. One, their sort of vibe of the leader of the party that they are voting for. And two, that they kind of just look at how their life has been over the last, 4 years and then vote for or against the party in power as sort of like things have gotten better or things have gotten worse. Like it's just they more or less just thumb up or thumb down based on what they think, whether or not they think the last few years have been good for them. And for a lot of people, the last few years have not been good for them. Is that entirely under Biden's control? No. Could Biden have done more? Hell yeah. There's a lot more he could have done. Could they have explained that better? Probably. But the election, the Harris campaign came short in a lot of different ways. So that's just another aspect of that, I think. But at the end of the day, I think that it came down to just like, it's a mix. It's a mix of a bunch of different things that happened. All right, Jaylor has a few more questions. The least bad noble family in Westeros. Definitely the Martells. Least bad European monarch in history. The best, so the least, all right, there's two answers. One of the least bad European monarchs in history is Carlos II, because he was one of the most inbred people who have ever lived on planet Earth, and so he was basically too infirm to actually do anything. Two, probably the actual best monarch in European history would be King Louis the 12th. No, King Louis the 19th. King Louis the 19th, who in 1830 was the king of France for 20 minutes. I think that there's not a whole lot you can do in 20 minutes. So there you go. All right. The news media is kind of full of noise. Yeah. There's like two kinds of journalism, right? There's like journalism that's like, research and time, and it's like more investigative and stuff like that. I like that kind of stuff, but it is, it's hard to do. It's expensive, and less and less people can afford to do it. And then there's just reporting, which is just like, basically a scramble to, as fast as possible, say the thing that happened. And I find that thing is too much. The fire hose is just going to drive you nuts. It's a generational split on the right. Boomers are Puritans. Young reactionaries want to go back to 2000 sexualized films and games. And the Jimmy Fallon Men show, the year Japan never left. Yeah. Well, thank you for the super chat on that. But yeah. Last time he had a cabinet, people were fired every couple months as well. That is true. That is true. In short, right-wing boomers are prudes, right-wing millennials are lechers. You're not wrong. Although, right-wing boomers are also kind of lechers, honestly. The boomer generation, like, has... I read a whole book about this. The boomer generation has more, like, infidelity and, like... what's it called? Like, infidelity and divorce and, like, you know, cheating on your spouse and stuff like that was way more common in the boomer generation than it is for us. There are a lot of news stories that end up being a nothing burger or seem like a big idea for a week and then we forget in a month or two. Yeah, exactly. So oftentimes, if there is a story that I think might end up being something interesting that I'm following, I'll make a Google alert for it and kind of watch the headlines for a few weeks to see how the story is shaping up. And I'll say that I know that there are people who don't like a lot of my technology takes, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But honestly, like, when it comes to, like, news stories that I'm, like, very interested in right now and that I'm, like, following along, two of them have to come out of the latest... People are going to think this is crazy because it's like everyone is trying to freak out over, like, what the fuck is the Trump administration going to be, as if anybody knows how to tell the future. Nobody knows, not even Trump. But I am super interested in two... So, God, I'm trying to say this in a way that's not going to get me called a gigantic nerd. There's been two very, very interesting papers in the latest edition of Nature that both have to do with very interesting advances in material science. And I don't know if anything is going to come of them because, you know, something that's just been theoretically, you know, made in a lab or theoretically is possible or has been, like, done in experiments is very far away from, you know, the multiple hurdles it takes to have, like, widespread action. But both of them are really cool and are potentially really big things about, you know, in my mind, because, you know, I'm kind of like I'm a very classical Marxist in some ways. I think that a lot of politics, as we understand it today, is downstream emergent phenomenon that is largely out of human control, and is mostly develops from economics and the ways, like the sort of ways and means that we produce and consume goods. And these two things that I'm kind of like following at the moment are interesting. And I if any of them end up being something, it'll be big, which is one, a compound called COF999, which is a very interesting move of chemistry. So this is a chemistry paper that came out. So COF999, it is a material that is made from a lot of material, like it's made from a lot of molecules that are not difficult to get. So that's a big one. One, it's made out of very common materials. Doesn't require anything weird or exotic. But is, as far as studies have shown now, an exceptional chemical when it comes to doing something that we definitely need a lot of doing, which is absorbing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So here's like the rundown. So, I know there's like a lot of people who are very skeptical of carbon capture because its scale is not nearly where it needs to be. One of the reasons is because all of the carbon capture technology that we have developed have this problem where, like, the chemicals that can absorb the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere then need like a crap load of energy to get the carbon dioxide out of the material, you know, in order to be able to absorb more of it, and usually wears out over, like, you can only do it so many times before it works. So COF999 is made out of fairly mundane materials, and this compound is very good at absorbing carbon dioxide. It's not the best in the world, but it's very good. And the main thing is to get it to leach the carbon dioxide that it captured out of it, you need to heat it to about 60 degrees Celsius, which is not, you know, that's not even as hot as a cup of coffee. Which, and after they said that they had, at least in the article in Nature, they were able to, after about 100 times of like absorbing carbon dioxide and getting it in and out and over again, they were able to, like they didn't see any degradation in its performance. So it could be hundreds of times that this stuff could be reused. So a material that can that is made of like cheap materials that can absorb lots of carbon dioxide and is relatively inexpensive energy wise to sort of cycle could be a big deal. That could be huge. Not that it's going to solve all of our climate change issues, but it's a climate or carbon capture was always a thing that people were like, well, we're going to need to do some of it because we can't just like the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere that we have right now is higher than we want it to be. And relying on the carbon cycle to sort of reabsorb it is we don't have time to do that. It would take centuries for the carbon dioxide that we put into the atmosphere to kind of get reabsorbed into the earth in a amount that would be safe. So something like this is going to be necessary. And for a long time, people were like fairly skeptical of it because of, like legitimate reasons. Like one, there was a lot of scientific a lot of scientific bottlenecks for it, but also it was being used by a lot of like, coal companies and stuff like that to be like this way for them to kind of keep their businesses going, which is not really, I don't think is very feasible. But it is, this is the kind of way that you make something like carbon capture actually do the things that we want it to do. And it's very interesting. And but the thing is, it's just an article in Nature right now. We don't know what it's going to be like to synthesize in large amounts. We don't know if they're going to be able to make industrial level amounts of COF99 that is usable in a way so that we can do effective carbon capture. We have no idea. The industrial side of it and the processing has not even, we just figured out that the thing exists. So I put a little Google alert on COF99 to see if there's anything interesting coming out of it. The other one that I've got a Google alert for that is also a sort of interesting an interesting new this one was an accidental development that came out in the latest edition of Nature, is a material called indium selenide. So this comes to computer technology. So as everybody knows, because we're having the AI talk still, that one of the major issues that our civilization is having when it comes to its energy usage is that we have a bunch of new things that are getting popular and are getting more widespread use that computers today are very, very inefficient at using. Data centers and data servers and like computing in general is using so much energy because it is so inefficient. And it is it's getting really bad. And the thing is, as much as I would love to, try to put toothpaste back in the toothpaste tube, like these are not technologies that are going to be uninvented. The AI thing, I think, is, I try not to talk about AI because I don't think that I haven't seen anybody. There's a lot of really dumb takes about AI, and I don't really want to engage in the conversation because it's just not worth it. Every time I try, it doesn't get anywhere. But the other one is fucking like cryptographic like asset stuff, like cryptocurrency and blockchain bullshit. It's like, despite the fact that it's extremely inefficient and it sucks, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere anytime soon. I'm not going to embrace it because I don't think it's actually like a useful technology. But you can't like. There's no way I'm going to stop people from doing crypto shit anytime soon. So we're endlessly thirsty for computer chips, and the amount of energy that they use keep going up. And there's like, like, I don't know much about with cryptocurrency, but I know with AI tech, there's like so much money being spent trying to make computer hardware that is more efficient at doing the sort of matrix multiplications that you need to do to make AI work, or language models work. And there's been some big progress on that. This is not about AI though. Well, it is, but it's about like all computer hardware. So indium selenide is like there's this like developmental it's like there's this new sort of way that they're trying to, that computer like engineers, or like people who kind of work at like the edge of like making new computer hardware, have been trying to find ways to make the energy more efficient. And one of them is something that's called phase change memory. This is a thing that's being developed. It's called phase change memory, PCM. Theoretically, PCM is a type of digital memory that could have the advantages of both long and short-term memory. Because like in your computer, you have two types of memory. You have random access memory, which is, like your RAM, which is constrained because basically as soon as electricity stops running through the RAM, everything that is in the RAM disappears. And then you've got longer-term memory that can store things without energy running through it, using magnets and all sorts of stuff, but it's slower to take the data off of that's written down. So you're basically trading efficiency, like energy efficiency, and data density for speed. And this like phase change memory was kind of trying to do both, but they weren't really having a lot of success making it more efficient than the sort of memory systems that we have now. And this the team accidentally came across indium selenide and found that they were able to do phase change memory at a energy cost that is roughly 1/1 billionth of the amount of power that you need to run memory in a modern computer, which could be massive. And so those are the two things I'm kind of keeping my eye on at the moment. They both came out in both of these I think are papers in the most recent edition of Nature, and both of them are very interesting. Let's see. Aren't I concerned about Project 2025 and Agenda 47? Sure. That definitely is a thing that they are using to intimidate people. The thing is that pointing to Project 2025 and then being like, look at that, scared, like be scared, Project 2025, it's there. And it's like, yeah, it's definitely something to be concerned about, because this is like the sort of like wish playbook. It's like the Project for a New American Century, right? Like it's a document made by a bunch of people on the American right about exactly all the things they want to do in the upcoming decades. And the thing though is that these things at the moment are just policy papers. When they actually start turning into policy, then you should fight them. But like, if you think about it, like, what can you do about Project 2025, right? Like, it exists at the moment. It's a document. It exists. It has people who are associated with it. And at the moment, knowing about it, like, it gives you some idea of the things they want to do. But like, does it give you more ammunition to be able to stop it? Does it give you insights into strategies to address it? Because like, at the end of the day, it's a wish list. When they start buying shit off that wish list, that's when we need to like. That's when like that's an actual thing that you can try to, stop and undo. You know. Maybe instead of like reacting against the Right's Project 2025, we make our own Project 2025 and have a nice big wish list of all the things that we would like to do. And then when we're trying to get power, show it to people and be like, look, here's the things that we want to do. All of it's good for you. And instead of like, right now where a lot of times like, liberals will run in elections and their policy is nothing, like literally like just like, I offer you nothing, except that how upset and concerned you should be about the other side. Instead, maybe we should be offering something. If anything, the fact that they had Project 2025 and then like, it seems like they like they won with it or something. Maybe it's a sign that we should also present policies. We should also say things that we want to do. And you're afraid you're going to get it. Trump is not going to invade fucking Canada. I mean, that would be so stupid. It would be so stupid. It's like, yeah. Like, this is the main thing. Like, everyone is so like when it comes to like Trump, like his Canadian policy is a sign that he's like of why like what I'm more afraid of is less the evil side of Trump and more just like a very stupid person with a lot of power. Because his Canadian policy, like his foreign policy towards Canada is like a threat of a 25% blanket tariff on our goods, which like Canada like the US is the purchaser of our goods. They're our largest trading partner, but like they're hardly the only country or the only like country that wants to buy softwood lumber and aluminum and tin and iron and uranium. There are other people who will buy that. But the United States, especially the United States, the country that is struggling with that claims to be struggling so hard with the housing crisis, probably wants wood and tin and, if they want to build nuclear power plants again to fund data servers or whatever the fuck, they're going to need uranium. And we've got all the uranium. And so, like, it's, like, all going to be bad for him. And then he, like, threatens to invade the country. Canada is a member of NATO. Canada is signed on to Article 5 of NATO, which would mean that if the United States invaded Canada, like, every single Western country is obligated to declare war on the United States. Like, it would be so... again, it's Trump again just being Trump, where he has a strategy, and unfortunately... it works because the media ecosystem that we live in now is so primed to just run with his bullshit, because his whole thing is he says a lot of ridiculous shit. He follows through with like 5% of it, but everything he says is news and it gets a lot of views because it's all ridiculous. So the news is constantly made up of people being shocked and outraged by the latest thing that Trump said. And then, you then like, don't like feel as like blown away when he just does president stuff. Like a lot of Trump's like first term, if you like look at it outside of rhetoric, a lot of it was very similar to any other kind of boilerplate Republican president. And like, it was bad, maybe like a little bit bad, maybe a little bit worse than like the average Republican president. But the thing is, he's very successful at like getting people to panic and then and using that to constantly draw attention to himself, to make the narrative always about him and make him the center of all political action. When, like, you know, the world's a big and complicated place. The United States is a big and complicated place. And the president is not, like, it's not a king. And he can't do all the things he wants to do by himself. And the people that he is putting in place to do his bidding are extremely incompetent. And so, I don't know. I'm expecting more chaos than I am, like, you know, a steep decline into fascist tyranny. I mean, shit. Donald Trump, like, made a like he posted his threat to Canada of, like, him holding a flag to invade Canada, and, like, the AI image he made had him in fucking Switzerland. Like, I don't know. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's keep going. Let's see. Just kind of going down. Did anyone know what happened to Trump's old speechwriter? No. For doing W's of the month, mine is you got a part-time job, which is better than no job. Heck yeah. We should do some W's. Guys, definitely, if you can, get some W's in the chat. Everyone loves a good win. I love keeping up on people's wins. Yeah. You know, folks in Canada literally getting death threats for speaking out against Hindutva. Yeah, Canada's got its own problems because this is, like, I don't know if I think we talked about this in the last stream, but, like, Canada has an issue where, like, the Conservative Party has been, like, very thoroughly like influenced by the Indian government, and, like, there's been, like, some flare, like, there was an assassination that happened of a sort of, like, Khalistani separatist guy. So okay, I guess I should get some more context. So in India, specifically in the Punjab region, there's if you don't know, there is a religious minority known as Sikhs. They're a religious minority, and some of them are, you know, have a desire to make a separate state, because the Sikh region, the region that is heavy with Sikhs, is, like, kind of between India and Pakistan, and it kind of got cut apart because of it. And so there's some people who want to make Khalistan, which is sort of like a Sikh state of its own. The Indian government has largely, like, cracked down on this, but many of, like, the sort of Khalistani separatist leaders have left the country and now live in Canada. And a few months ago, one of those leaders just flat out got assassinated by the Indian government in Canada. And that's bad. And, like, Canada and India had, like, a big diplomatic standoff for several months. And then there was a shooting that happened in, I want to say, Brampton a few weeks ago, also related to, like, this side of rising tension between Hindus and Sikhs in Canada. So that's a whole other kettle of fish that's going on in Canada, but, like, that's our own sort of thing. Can capitalism be stopped? Gary, that's what Gary asked. I would say that I don't know if capitalism can be intentionally stopped. I think that there's another way to frame this, which is that, can capitalism continue? Because I'm, again, the more that I, like, study history and study economics and stuff, the more I'm kind of coming to the conclusion that, like, human, like the system, the social systems that humans have of economics and politics and everything, is sometimes slightly too big for individual actors to like make a like lasting meaningful change on society. Like the way that our economics works is sort of an emergent phenomenon based on like the sort of superstructural culture and norms of our day, the way that we consume and manufacture goods, and sort of historical inertia. And the only thing that seems to like undermine these systems are bigger things than people have. They're like developments in economics. They're developments in the way that we make and manufacture goods. They're technological. They're ecological. And when that when things are going to change, it's when the sort of like system that we have in place for managing our economy is too far out of sync with the way that our actual economics works. Capitalism, specifically, has a sort of problem at its core, which is that it mutually has incentives to it mutually has a strong incentive to pay workers as little as humanly possible in order to keep manufacturing goods. It also requires people to have money to buy goods in order to make the economy function. And we have been pushing the economy further and further into a point where more and more people have less and less money to spend on things. And at some point, we're going to see that kind of make the economic system fall apart, because you can't have capitalism in a world where nobody has any money. If, Jeff Bezos has all of the money, which, the way that capitalism works is it kind of trends towards a smaller and smaller group of people having a larger and larger portion of money. At some point, they have so much money that nobody else has any money to give them money for the thing so that they can have more money. The system sort of reaches a breaking point and falls apart. The last time this happened was when our economics that were focused around agriculture started to be replaced by economics that focused around manufacturing. So in an age where agriculture is the primary form of economic activity, i.e. like, olden days where everybody was a farmer and most of the things that we had were made by, farmed goods and artisan crafts. In that kind of a world, the way that you have political power, obviously in a farming society, is to have, arable land. So the ownership of land was the most important thing. And therefore, deeds to land and like the power of people who owned land, like say landlords, were the ones who had all of the political power. We didn't just call them landlords back then, we called them counts, barons, viscounts, dukes, kings, emperors, those kinds of things. But then, in the sort of age of colonization, we moved towards manufacturing, the development of manufactured goods being the driving force of having money. Because all of a sudden, if you could, facilitate trade and arbitrage, or if you had factories, or if you had, if you had the machines, you had the factories, you had the raw resources, those were the things that made you money, not the sort of owning of large tracts of farmable land. The thing though is that the system didn't change, and that the people who owned the large tracts of farmable land were still the ones who held political power, but the material power started to grow in a new class of people who were those who were making their money off of trading and merchants and that kind of thing. That class then grew in power, overthrew the old aristocratic class, and became the sort of dominant class we have in society today. So, I think that like, and that period of history when all of that was going on was like another time where you saw a big upset in the way that like things unfolded in history. That was when you saw like the French Revolution, the American Revolution, those kinds of like periods where you had periods of civil unrest, you had revolutions, you had civil wars of basically like liberals fighting against like liberalism, the ideology of capitalism, fighting against the aristocrats. And who knows where it'll go in the future. I mean, Marx had some ideas, but, you know, the future hasn't happened yet. So in many ways, the whole idea is like, can capitalism be stopped? I would say that capitalism at the end of its day cannot continue forever. The only reason I think it continued to last as long as it did is because World War II sort of forced a lot of capitalist countries to make a lot of very large capitulations that were very counter to the instincts of capitalism and set the clock back quite a bit. And then they spent the last like 40-ish years undoing that. And now we're kind of getting back to the place where we're at. So what I'll say is, you know, not to say don't do anything, because, you know, we are at the end of the day the agents of that emergent phenomenon. But in many ways, I think that like you keep advocating, you keep trying to make the world a better place. You keep trying to heal the sort of like, you know, the sharp edges of our economic system. And then like when the actual tides are changing, you will know. And, you know, join in. That kind of thing. I still really want to go to Australia. People are talking about Australia because like I'm really, really far behind on the chat. And I remember there was like a whole thing where I'm like, oh man. One of my like best friends lives in Melbourne, and today we like, you know, trudging through like a meter of snow. I'm like, fuck man, I'd take as many fucking poisonous spiders over the fucking snow. Yeah, anyways, let's see. Class should have been Kamala's exclusive focus and nothing else. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what would have won the election. Like, if I was in Harris's camp and I was, like, trying to figure out what would have won, I don't know what it would have been. But, you know, kitchen table issues, distancing yourself from Biden, proposing policies that would be, like, serious, like, quality of life increases, those would have helped. All right, let's see. Just the problem with representative democracy is it teaches the population to not understand how things work because it's the government's job to understand the problems. You see, very good anarchist take. I honestly agree with that one. Okay. Boney Maloney, thank you for $10. I appreciate it. So many Aussie bucks today. Wow. Thank you. Let's see. The American hostility towards education is really anger that a public good isn't commodified. That thing about capitalism as religion. Yeah. Our capitalism as religion isn't as weird as you think, because really, like, the way that economics works is like, or the way that the world works is like, our culture, like the things like our religions, our mythology, the ways that we determine what is right and wrong are sort of like mutually reinforced, you know, like structures that are built on top of the economic system that we have today. And so, yeah, like I would argue, you know, what Protestant or capitalism as religion is just called Protestant Christianity. You know, like it is that would be my argument there. Build Back Better was good. It fixed a lot of the roads in my area. Yeah, just like, again, it seems like if you make the election entirely about Donald Trump, he then wins. Voters went to Trump for all sorts of niche personal reasons, not a grand tapestry of ideas. Yeah, that's another thing too. Like, I think that a lot of Trump people are like a lot of like people who voted for Trump are like, well, the last 4 years sucked. My, like, you know, I can't afford anything anymore. Who's president? The Democrats? Well, then I'm going to vote for the other guy. And that's just how I think. Like, I honestly like that's I think more people vote based on that kind of thing than anything else. I know so many people in Canada who will vote entirely based off if they think X party leader sucks or not. Yes. Yeah, Canada is way worse on this. So many people in Canada vote like, well, do I like the liberal leader or the conservative leader better? And then you vote for the one that you like the most. Not looking forward to next year's election. No. Definitely not. I'm definitely not like, yeah. The liberals are looking. The only thing, okay, Kat, okay, Matt, I will say one thing, and that is maybe this is spicy, but who knows? I have a sneaking suspicion that the liberals do have one back pocket possible thing that they're waiting on until it's closer to the election that could, I think, could move the needle enough to win them the election, or even the promise of it. And that is the fact that even though they say they don't have, you know, there aren't liberal senators because they're not in caucus, we all know that they have liberal senators. The fact that they have a very comprehensive and very, like, you know, well liked and like well researched and well put together basic income bill that has been sitting in the Canadian Senate since basically since shortly after the last federal election, makes me think that that is like break in case of liberal collapse. And that because like that's kind of like Trudeau's thing, right? Like Trudeau kind of runs on like, hey, I'm gonna like promise this new policy that is like this like popular thing. Like in 2015, one of the things that he ran on was legalizing cannabis, and that got him a lot of votes. And then he did it. He legalized cannabis. And so, like, I think the liberals are sitting on a basic income with that as the thing. And I think one of their trial balloons for it is this $250 GST rebate that everyone's going to be getting. Or theoretically everyone's going to be getting. But, and I don't know how big UBI would be on, like, moving the needle, because people are pretty fed up with Justin Trudeau at the moment. But maybe a year of seeing Trump run roughshod over the U.S. and then Trudeau offering, and then Trudeau throwing a Hail Mary of promising a basic income program could work. I mean, I'll even say that, like, my life has been one of, like, you know, the Liberal Party's like Hail Marys to avoid losing to the Conservatives. One of them is like probably the reason why I didn't have to drop out of doing Step Back years ago, because of the childcare, the $30 a day childcare, or 10, I don't know, the childcare policy, because like I actively saw a bill that I was going to be getting of $1,300 a month for daycare go down to what is now like $580. Like, just like, you know, that was insane. And that was the result of the liberal policy. Obviously it was like taken from the NDP, but still, hey. So we'll see. I don't think the election's as over for the liberals as you think it is. I think if the liberals were more afraid of their prospects in the next election, we would be seeing a stronger push for Trudeau to leave office. But I think things look better for the liberals than we think. That's my guess. And I also think that compared to the US, like Pierre Poilievre's sort of like social conservative stuff and also his like kind of like ties to India, I think that turns off more people in Canada than it would in the US. And at the end of the day, like making Pierre Poilievre squirm by saying that, like, hey, Pierre Poilievre seems to really hate abortion. What's that all about? Like, that kind of stuff actually costs some votes here in Canada. Well, it might not in the US. That's because our political culture is very different. Our conservatives are very different. All right. Napoleon II, he was only a baby and he ruled for like 30 minutes. There, another great monarch. How would I react if the U.S. invades us, Canada? I don't know. The set of circumstances that would have to happen for the U.S. to invade Canada are so wild that like it would be like if I had heard like just like on the news like today that like Americans have crossed the border, the American army's crossed the border and stuff like that, like I would be like, that can't be true. Like it's so fucking wild. But the thing is that like like Canada's a humongous fucking country, and the U.S. trying to occupy it would be like all you would need to do is like disappear into the woods and start like fighting the Yankees, and it would be a pretty hard place to hold. That or the inverse is like all they would need to do is take Toronto and Montreal, and they have most of the country under control. But yeah, I do live like 2 hours from Detroit, so I feel like if the U.S. invaded Canada, I would probably be, under American occupied Ontario before I even could find out the news about it. It's just a fun, yeah. Say chicken. It's Canada. I'm just gonna keep reading. Interesting. Hi, Pinball Witch. Nice to see the streaming regulars here. Hope you all weather the current moment as best you can. Hope you all sticking in. Yeah. Been hearing a lot of wild pharmaceuticals coming down the pipe too. Yeah. That's the other thing too. Is like, there's also just you're talking about like the pills. Yeah. The pharma. I saw this thing. I was talking to my like dental hygienist about this. That like there's like we're very close to like human clinical trials for a pill that makes teeth regrow. So it could be in the future that if you lose a tooth, instead of getting like a cap or like an implant, they might just be like, all right, give them the tooth pill and you just regrow your teeth. Crazy shit. Currently watching CNN and Jesus fucking Christ, they obsessed with watching this Hitman. Yeah. I mean, they are obsessed with watching this Hitman. He's hot, and like apparently, and also he's like, I'm not saying that this guy is the possible reincarnation of John Brown, but do I consider AI art as theft or less genuine? I don't consider it art. I try to. All right, I'll give you. I'll say that. I'll say two things, and hopefully, this is like one of the more spicy subjects that I hope I can like thread the needle on without people hating me. So I don't consider AI art, or what people call AI art. There's something kind of interesting about this, like this new movement that is, instead of calling it AI art, calling it promptography, which honestly is like, there's some things I like about that, because in some ways it's like euphemistic. So it's trying to legitimize, writing. Make me a picture of, pregnant crazy frog, but what I tend to use the term AI generated image, and like, I made a video about this ages ago, but nobody watched it. So I don't think that it is. I don't consider it like human art. Like, I don't think it should be copyrighted as such. I don't think like you should be able to type a prompt and have a algorithm produce an image and you turn around and say that you made it. There's a little bit of an art to like AI image prompting, but it's not a lot. Then again, there's some legitimately like good art that doesn't require a lot of technical skill, but who cares? I think that like, in some ways I kind of think of it as like extremely sophisticated, or extremely fancy, like, what's it called? Collage. But, I think the second part though is it theft? And I said this in the video, and I've said this on streams a few times. I don't think it's theft, but I also don't think it's not theft. And I think that the main thing that we have when it comes to like people's, like the people's intellectual labor going into making organized information that is then studied by a statistical like analysis tool in order to replicate data that looks like it, is like, it's not, it's a complicated, like, it involves words that we don't super have language for. And I don't have a good answer. Because I think that there's a lot more like lexicographical, or yeah, there's more like we need better words and new ideas to kind of discuss what this is, because we've never had a like Bayesian statistics model that needed to eat basically all organized information available on the internet in order to then recreate it, or a facsimile of it, which can then be done at scale. And like, so that I would argue is like, I don't have a good answer, I don't think anybody has a good answer, but I will definitely say that it is, and this is like kind of my take on a lot of AI subjects, is that I think it's reductive and kind of dumb to call yourself an artist because you wrote some words into a prompt. And it's also kind of reductive and dumb to say that studying the association of like edges and pixels and values from billions of images is somehow theft. Like, I think that like it's not, like, I kind of thought about it a lot this when all of those like authors were like trying to sue OpenAI for training on like books and stuff like that. And it's like, this thing, like this like, your like, it broke it down into tokens. So it broke down your stuff into like a mix of like 2 to 3 character chunks, and then use your stuff to slightly change an integer that associates to like what chunks appear more often next to other chunks. And that was averaged out with like every other instance of seeing that chunk in billions of sources. Like, it's Yeah, there's a better answer. You work for a major data center. Energy efficiency is kind of a hot topic these days. People are going to do liquid cooling at industrial scale with fairly decent results. Yeah, Dave L. Like, this is the thing when it comes to like computer stuff is like, there's a lot of like a lot of people who like get really angry about like the power usage of computers because it's like a major issue. But also like anytime there's a major issue like that, people are going to be pouring fuckloads of energy and like if there's one like if there's one like person or like one interest group that is very concerned about the energy usage of like data centers, it's the people who own a lot of data centers, because at the end of the day they have to pay for that energy, and so they're highly incentivized to make things more energy efficient. And as you said, there's a lot of work going on in like computer science and materials design to try and fix these issues. I'm afraid of quantum only because it'll kind of destroy any current existing cybersecurity. Kind of. Quantum computers are, yeah, like they're very good at solving a very specific type of cryptography, but then also like people are all, even though quantum computers are like very very primitive, people have already done like like the cryptographers have already done some pretty decent work to like make quantum computing proof cryptographic codes. In the end, when quantum computers become more of like a regular occurrence on computers, they're not going to be like, there's not going to be like a quantum computer in your desktop, because like they actually can't do a lot of the functionalities that you need a computer to do, but they're good at very specific types of math. Actually, the kind of math that AI needs a lot of. But one of the things that they're really good at is cracking a thing that regular computers are really bad at, and a lot of cryptography is based on using math that computers are bad at solving in order to make it hard to crack. Like a lot of our cryptographic stuff is based on multiplying large prime numbers together, because computers are, the way that computers work today, they're really bad at like looking at a number and finding out if it's prime, meaning that it can only be multiplied by itself and one. There's no other combination of numbers that can be multiplied for it. The only way a computer can do that is through brute force, and that is it's, if you make the prime number big enough, it'll take like longer than the universe has to actually crack. And then furthermore, to be like, here's a number that you have that is made up of two prime numbers that have been multiplied together, and in order to get access to this server, you need to know what the two prime numbers are. And that is even more complicated. But quantum computers are really good at that. But also, cryptographers are really good at finding new ways to make code. So I think a lot of like the fear of like quantum cryptography stuff is kind of like Y2K, which is that when it kind of comes online, we're going to need to do a whole lot of like retrofitting of security systems. But at the end of the day, I think we're going to be okay. You caved and got premium. I have YouTube Premium. YouTube Premium is good for creators, and also, even though YouTube Premium is kind of expensive, definitely worth it, especially because now my kid is of the YouTube watching age, and I really don't want him to be exposed to ads. So, and like, I like watching YouTube without ads. A lot of the worst that Trump was stopped by regular people. Striking workers stopped government shutdowns. Protesters took over airports. Yeah. On that front, I would say, yeah, like all of the things that Donald Trump's second term threaten haven't happened yet. And we are fully capable of doing whatever we can to stop them. Let's see. Biggest failure of anti-fascists historically has often been standing around and doing anything other than fascist bad. Yeah. Chinese university is testing a diamond surface for data storage, 2,000 times the storage density of Blu-ray, and may be stable for millions of years. Yeah, I think that kind of stuff, though, is like, you can't, it's not rewritable. Like, it's good for, like, archiving important data, but you couldn't, like, get a diamond hard drive in your computer because it's sort of like a write once, and it's, like, literally etched in stone, right? Let's see. It's more about how Canadian conservatives follow in his wake in the growing fashion. Yeah. Let's see. Trump is senile. It's the intelligent reactionaries around him that make me nervous. Except there aren't really that many intelligent reactionaries around him, is the thing. You don't think they'd be able to beat UK and France combined, let alone all of NATO? Bruh, they couldn't even beat Afghanistan and Iraq combined. It feels like it's super privileged to be like, well, Trump is a dictator, give up and go home. You get what I mean? Yeah. Shows that you have no, like, you know, stake in the outcome. Hey, thank you for the $5, Testa Trekkie. Are there any tensions between Quebecois and non-Quebecois francophones in Canada? My Quebecois boss is quite dismissive of non-Quebecois francophones. There are some, but it's not like it's like every other sort of regional Canadian hatred of each other. It's like it exists, but it's not like it's going to be violent or anything like that. It's more just like a mutual rudeness. The main thing that I think is, if there is going to be any like real tensions that's going to come, is that Canada is probably going to experience a really large increase in Francophone immigration over the next few years. And Ottawa is doing a lot of work to try and encourage more Francophone immigration outside of Quebec. And so if there's going to be like any like actual like Francophone discrimination, it's going to be the fact that a lot of Canadians are going to experience a lot more Francophones living in their communities, and they're going to want a lot more services in French. And there's a certain flavor of Canadian that will find that that will be very angry about that prospect, especially because a lot of them are going to be black, and that is going to not feed into it. All right. Let's see. Just got an update, so all the stuff that I'm like, all right, let's see. He instills more paranoia in our already crazy reactionaries, which is actually a very bad thing. Yeah. Pretty scared for trans rights in America right now. That is a legitimate thing to be worried about. Yeah. But like, the reason to be scared for trans rights is a bigger thing than Donald Trump. There's been a backsliding on the progress that trans people have been making for probably the last like 3 or 4 years. Let's see. Why is it that Trump embraces an 1890s idea like expansionism and tariffs? For real, he's really channeling Grover Cleveland, huh? Let's see. Oh, man. Someone said that they upped the difficulty. That's a good win. That they upped the difficulty on Warhammer 3 earlier. Man, okay. I gotta say, this is the thing that I've been going nuts about. I want to get into wargaming, but one, I don't have the money to buy a fucking Tyranid, what's it called? warband or whatever, an army, and I sense that not a lot of new people are getting into Warhammer 40k as a hobby these days. At least not in like the side of it that is like the game. So like the non-video game. But I've been like really dying to find. I'm like struggling because I actually don't think there is a good version of it, but there probably is somewhere. But like there isn't like a really good, instead of like Tabletop Simulator or something. But like I'm like I want a video game that is like that feels like what it's like to play like a Warhammer or something like that. Because like a lot of like the sort of turn-based tactical games are, there's a bit too much like crunch because there's a computer managing the math, so that they can add more crunch to it. The campaign mode is like not like a campaign like we would think of it. And 3, like usually it keeps the party sizes a lot smaller. It's more like small squad tactics. And I want like an army. So, and I'm thinking, I mean, this is probably intentional, but I'm like, where's the Warhammer 40k game that feels like playing Warhammer 40k? But yeah, I need to like play more 5 parsecs from home or something like that. I did a campaign of 5 parsecs from home a ways back, and I really liked it, and I need to play it again. And I have some of the expansions for it now, so I should probably do that again. But I want to, and I also bought Trench Crusade, like the book. So maybe I'll get a 3D printer that isn't the Nightmare one that I have, and print some STLs and make a Black Grail warband for Trench Crusade, and try to see if anybody in London gets into playing it. Let's see. The thing about the CEO that I will say is that there is a Cory Doctorow short story that I read that is specifically about like a bunch of people who have like terminal conditions that their health insurance companies denied them sort of their life-saving treatments. And so they turn to like terrorism because they're like, we have nothing left to lose. So they just start doing like random acts of violence against the healthcare industry. And this whole thing going down is making me want to read it again. Let's see. You recently signed up to volunteer at a local NGO that helps autistic people. So I'm going to do a one-on-one hangouts with local autistic person to help build their social circle. That's really nice of you. That's awesome. I actually, it's funny because this is probably not that different from what you're going to end up doing. I tried to volunteer for the library to run their teen D&D games, and they ran one adult game, and apparently it was so popular that they want to do more of it. And I signed up, but I couldn't. Eventually I went through the like sort of like onboarding, but I couldn't end up doing it because basically just like the nights that they wanted to do it were not like the days and nights they wanted to do it were just not days I could do. Like they wanted me to do it at like on like Saturday afternoons. And like I'm like I can't book off every Saturday afternoon. I have a 2-year-old. I can't do that. So they reached out to me like a couple weeks ago, being like, "We're starting another adult like D&D table because the one we had was so popular, and we will run it on the night that you are free because we want you to run it." So I guess I made a good impression with them. So. Your win is you started an RPG with your family this week. Nice. Ooh, here's my win. I started playing Baldur's Gate again because I had a single save that I had been playing the entire time since the day Baldur's Gate came out. And when the patch came out that nerfed that like added their own add-ons. It broke all of the add-ons I had in my playthrough, and so the one save that I had been using for like months and like a year was dead. And I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to start from scratch, and that sucks. But I decided to finally do the starting from scratch, and I'm adding some of the official, like now with the the sanction mods system. I added some sanction mods to like increase the party size and make the fights a little bit tougher to compensate. And I'm enjoying. I'm having fun, and that's good. With what little time I have to play video games, anyways. Yeah. Let's see. Historical observation: as wealth and concentrates further and further, most social systems become more and more brittle to challenges. This is that's just a fact. Been educating yourself about Mastodons, this Collectiva, Federated social media. Yeah. I mean, Blue Sky, that's a W from the last month. Shout out to the great folks on Discord who've been weathering the current storm far better than I assumed they would. Yeah. I thought I was going to end up worse than I did. But I took a social media break, a hard social media break for a week where I didn't read the news, and I didn't go on social media for like a week, and gave me enough time to kind of get out of the sort of shock, and then I was like, ready to get back into it. Let's see. Your W is that since the last stream, I got your partner to watch Star Trek Discovery with you. Nice. I still have I have a few episodes I need to still watch. I'm not caught up. I think I have I think I basically have about half of the last season still to watch. Which sucks. Let's see. How to survive Australian animals. Don't put parts of yourself in holes. Don't poke any animals. Don't swim in the water in Northern Australia. There you go. The whole idea in Australia that a spider is you should take a spider more seriously, because I don't take spiders seriously. I don't care. Spiders do not faze me at all. But I know that in Australia, if you see a spider in your house, you should probably do something about it. That's a thing. I remember seeing a thing where they edit children's cartoons in Australia where if they have a spider in it, they will not have the spider because they don't want to teach kids that spiders are not dangerous. I just want to move to Melbourne because it looks nice. It is a coastal city. It's about the size of Toronto. It doesn't get too hot, doesn't get too cold. And it doesn't get snow. And honestly, I think I would see it as a benefit that being 12 hours removed from anything going on in the US. How cooked do I think the U.S. is long term? I don't think that the U.S. is doomed. I think the U.S. is the U.S.'s days as the hegemonic single superpower on Earth, which was never never a long term plan, is coming to an end. And as we learned in Britain, countries don't do well when they sort of decline from being the number one power. And that's going to be rough. Americans learning to accept not being the center of everybody's attention at all times is going to be, it's going to be rough in a lot of weird ways. Yeah, Polyev literally keeps bullying his own MPs for helping their own writings. I mean, Polyev is like literally getting in trouble. Like the conservatives have like writing associations that are like resigning en masse because the party is like forcing them to take MP candidates that they don't want and stuff like that. Like there is in some ways like that, like the internal conservative party structure is really chafing against like Polyev's attempts to take over the party. And he could very well go down in the same way that like every other conservative leader recently has gone down, by just pointing out that they're like massively corrupt and doing like terrible things. Because like the last party leader before Polyev was like using party funds to put his kids in private school. And in America, nobody would bat an eyelash on that. But in Canada, he had to resign over it. All right. What could the Onion do to make InfoWars more of a joke than it already is? I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. The Onion buying... That's another W. The Onion buying InfoWars, which might have been the funniest event in the 21st century. You're going to snort the tooth pill? Yeah. Let's see. Could America have conquered Canada if it joined the Central Powers? The Brits joined the Confederacy. I think that generally the same issue comes up over and over again with a theoretical conflict between Canada and the U.S., which is just that Canada would be very easy to conquer, would be very hard to hold. Canada is too big, and there's like virtually the border is humongous. It's literally the world's largest land border, and there's just like infinite space for guerrillas to retreat into and cause havoc. So like any like sort of like annexed, occupied Canada would just be an absolute nightmare to hold on to power in. John Brown was mentally hot. Oh my god. Now let's see. I'm going through. Distance art requires humans in both creation and observation. Art exists in the process of those two things. Yeah. It's not art. It's not theft. It's complicated theft. It's the whole thing is like if AI image generation is theft, then literally any like taking any inspiration from anything ever is theft. Like it's just it's a different thing, and it's it's a whole thing, and I can already see that the stuff I said is getting pushback, so that's fun. Plagiarism is a word that sounds when read aloud and not read. That's the other thing too, is like calling it plagiarism is also kind of weird, because I don't think anybody who makes AI images says that they made it. I mean, there are definitely people who are doing that, but like that's not the main thing of it. I don't know. Like that's the whole thing. There's two definitions of plagiarism that before this kind of stuff became a thing was considered was kind of impossible to separate, but now you can. Because if plagiarism is stealing another person's work and passing it off as your own, that is one thing. The other being just the sort of idea of like this, like not like the thing that you produce not being the thing that like not being a thing that you specifically made. And it's like at that point, like there's some semantics there that get really annoying. And I know that I don't have the energy to do it because already the conversation I can already see in the chat has gone in a direction that I do not like. So like it's obviously it's impossible that we should have from the kinds of people that, like the way that you just called it, like it's not theft, it's complicated theft. Already I know that like it's going to be more energy than I'm willing to give to have a productive conversation with you guys about this topic. This is why I don't talk about AI topics, because it's the discourse right now is extremely dumb, and I'm going to wait until we get to the other side of the Hegelian dialectic on it. And yeah. Let's see. Please keep sharing wins. I love wins. You should live stream more often. I think I should too. I can't make videos as much as I used to, so live stream would be a good way to do it. I'm gonna try to get caught up with the chat before I end. I know it's almost time to end the stream, but I started late and I should at least get caught up. So, but yeah, I'm gonna try to do it every month or so. See if I can do it more often. But also, I don't have that much free time anymore. Like I work all day. I come home. I parent until 7 or 8 o'clock, and then my brain is so utterly fried. Then I have to do chores. Like dishes and all that kind of stuff, and then it's like 9 o'clock, and then I'm like, well, I have like 1 to 2 hours before bed, and I'm exhausted, and that is the time that I have to either do a stream or work on YouTube videos or make art or do anything. Oh yeah, Tristan, how do you feel about AI using your vids to model learn? Yeah, I did. I got interviewed about it. I don't remember if I actually got into the big article when that came out a while back, but I was part of that, and I did get interviewed by journalists for it. My take was like, I was like, I don't know, like, I'm surprised. Like, I was kind of like, well, I'm actually more surprised that it didn't happen already. Like I was like, okay, like I'm surprised that I honestly would have been surprised if every YouTube video hasn't automatic captions have not already been scraped, because it's publicly available information, has not already been scraped for AI data training, because like they're desperate for pretty much any form of publicly available information, and that is a free, open, dangling version of it. And so in my mind, I was like, the average manager at Walmart steals more from a like minimum wage employee in like a week in like wage theft than like them scraping all of my scripts to train a language model on. Like, I don't know. Like it's so, maybe this is why, and people like, I know that's like a terror, like people are going to talk about like that, like that's like shocking or whatever, but like that's just sort of like, that's just sort of the thing, right? Like that's just kind of like, that's the thing that's happening. And like, so it sucks a little bit. Like I would have loved to have been at least informed about it, and maybe have had the chance to consent, but also like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to like muster a big feeling when I'm like, I think that like pretty much every scrap of information, like on a long enough timeline, I think that like virtually every scrap of organized information on the internet is going to be used to train a learning model at some point. That's just like, I just think it's true. And so it's hard for me to like, it's hard for me to really like, I don't know, like muster big anger about it. Let's see. How much wish I want to thank you for some advice you gave me like a year ago that helped me get into grad school. I really appreciate it. That's awesome, James. Hope you're enjoying grad school. 40K makes fascism look cool, and I'm not into it anymore. Man, Adam something makes a video about Warhammer 40K, and all of a sudden everybody's lining up to have the exact same opinion. Don't let Adam something ruin your life. Have your own ideas. Adam, something's fine. I don't know. Let's see. The table game rules are too arbitrary. Yeah. Let's see. I miss how, yeah. The same short story anthology that had the story of the healthcare terrorists also had one where a Superman stand-in stops the police from brutalizing a black man, and then all of a sudden everyone turns on him using anti-immigrant arguments because he's from space. That kind of thing. Stream some Warhammer 3 and see. I don't think that Warhammer is what I'm looking for. I've played Total War games before, and I don't like RTS. I don't like the RTS part of Total War games that much, honestly. Let's see. Finally finished your first Graeber book this year. Nice. Very good. Do love me some David Graeber. Let's see. Grew up in brown recluse is more common in America, but also, yeah. I mean, where I live, technically, the brown recluses and black widows are potentially spiders you could run into, but they're very rare. Like, I have never seen a brown recluse or a black widow, although I do live, like, in their range. If you're from Melbourne, say hi to Torn Tanuki. He's a good egg. Melbourne has culture food. Sydney has jobs. Hobart has lovely country town. Yeah, I don't know. I like. So far, Melbourne seems very, very attractive to me. Let's see. What's that about Adam something? Oh, I just said that like Adam something made a video about Warhammer 40K, and all of a sudden, I'm hearing this exact same argument from everybody that like all of a sudden Warhammer is like too pro-fascist, and I'm like, I mean, I get it, but also like, I don't know. I'm far too incentivized to back it up. I mean, I literally have a 40K orc tattoo on my back, so I can't go too far. But it's not. I don't even dislike Adam something. I have like some disagreements with some of his takes, but they're like respectful ones, and like his positions aren't unreasonable. I just have a different opinion. But for the most, I just thought that I just respectfully disagreed with the way that Adam something talked about Warhammer 40K. But that's just me, and that's okay. People are allowed to disagree without being. There are things you can disagree on that don't have to be, knuckle drag ends to the world. Sometimes you can be like, I don't think that Warhammer going corporate is as like it started as like a sort of like critique of like over the top fascist stuff, and now it's kind of in a weird complicated place, and I kind of like I kind of don't care. Like I don't think it's making as big a I don't think it's as big a deal as I think it is, and I like it's entertaining in a lot of other different ways. which I know is probably like a weak argument to have, but I don't know. I'm not a very big. I'm not a good media critic. Is my thing. Hey, Ron, you read 80 books this year? Jesus Christ. I'm hoping to get to 30 by the end of the year. Although I decided that I decided to pick up in like December fucking 11/22/63, and that book is fucking massive, so I don't know if I'm going to get there, but yeah. All right. Well, thank you for giving me like approximately 2% of Australia's GDP for the year, J Lord. But yeah, I think it's about time that I called it a night. There are places in Australia where it snows. That's not where I want to go. Anyways. Everybody, you guys are great. I love doing these. I hope that I can do it again sometime soon. You know, be good to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to each other. Don't pick fights you don't need to pick. And pick fights you do need to pick. And, yeah, maybe we'll see you again soon. Cheers, everyone.